Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here this morning for the next hour. So let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Pamela Klaba. I'll be your MC and the moderator for this session today. So we are just really privileged and honored to have you joining us this morning out of your busy time and your busy schedules. So we will kick off. So really the purpose of today's session is really to do a public briefing of the South African Workplace Equality Index, which is really the official launch by the LGBT+ Management Forum of South Africa. And the expected audience for this session, we really welcome everyone that has joined us. Really the target is HR and DEIB specialists and practitioners, the ERG leads from the different sectors of our economy, the EXCO sponsors for the companies that are participating and that will also participate, the CEO, the boards, the SMEs, the NGOs, government departments, all type of employers, because really this is a critical much needed dialogue at this time where we are in our country as far as inclusion is concerned. Really the official launch of the South African Workplace Equality Index 2026 is really to unpack the framework and the roadmap and more employers to register and start within the 60-day window of this process for 2026, which started on the 26th of September and closes on the 14th of November. Thank you so much. So just in terms of our agenda, but before we get into the agenda, just some house rules. Just please mute yourself while you're in the call. We'll have some time towards the end of the session for Q&A where you can then unmute and ask the questions. You are also more than welcome to post some comments, input, and questions onto the chat, which will continuously monitor and make sure that your questions and input are highlighted at the end of the session. If we do not get through all the questions, we will then record them via email and then we'll get the representative of the organization to respond afterwards via email to all the attendees. Thank you so much. So this session is recorded and we've got a full packed agenda for the next hour. We will kick off with our Honorable Deputy Minister from the Department of Women, Youth, and People with Disabilities. So just to make sure that, you know, she sets the tone for us in terms of the purpose, as I've highlighted, of this session, and also why LGBT plus inclusion matters for workplaces, for the economy, and for the society at large. So with that, you know, I would really like to humbly welcome our Honorable Deputy Minister to take the stage and take us through really what she would like to unpack as far as the South African Workplace Equality Index process for 2026. Over to you, Honorable Minister. Minister, you are on mute.
Greetings to you, Program Director. Let me also greet Kelly Mabe and the team. Let me also greet, I see the co-chair of the National Task Team, Sbonelo Ngangana Troa. I do see colleagues who join from different institutions, including Mamba Online, officials from government, leaders of business, industry, civil society representatives, as well as fellow South Africans. Of course, today we gather for a moment of profound significance, the launch of the 2025-2026 South African Workplace Equality Index, and it goes live for this most important milestone, institutional milestone, but most importantly, it's also not just a moral declaration. It is a signal to our nation and to the world that South Africa will not waver in its institutional promise that every person, regardless of who they are or who they love, must live, must work, and must thrive with dignity. Today, we move from intent to implementation thereof. South Africa is one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. It guarantees equality, it prohibits discrimination, and it promises dignity for all. Yet we know that rights on paper are not always rights in practice. Of course, the SAWEI is the tool that bridges that gap. It tells employers across this land, do not only declare your values, show us your evidence. Show us how you hire, how you pay, how you promote, and how you protect. Because rights on paper mean nothing if they do not translate into the lived experience of workers at their desk, at their offices, at their factories, and also in their shop floors. But we know we are here because the statistics are sobering. They are not necessarily what we are looking for. Studies show that only about 14.9% of gender non-conforming LGBTI individuals in South Africa are in a paid labor force, compared to 46.4% of gender conforming heterosexual individuals. Those who do not find work, and they earn on average 30% less than their peers. The national survey shows that while 3/4 of LGBTI people reported some form of employment, many face precarious and unequal conditions, especially when you are Black, when you are transgender, and when you are gender non-conforming person. So in an economy already burdened by unemployment that is above 30%, with women carrying an even heavier burden, this exclusion is so much devastating. It means creativity, innovation, and potential are systematically undervalued and wasted. That means we are not tapping on the potential and the value and the brilliance of LGBTI people. It means that the constitution protection or constitutional protection has not yet translated into economic dignity for LGBTI people. This is why SAWEI matters. It takes the commitment in our constitution, in the National Development Plan, in the presidency priorities, in the priorities of many organizations that strive for economic justice. It takes it to full participation, safety, decent work, youth pathways, disability access, and of course, to prevent gender-based violence and hate crimes. And it translates them into operational behaviors that employers can implement and measure. Intersectionality must be our anchor in this. This index does not isolate LGBTI people from the wider transformation agenda. Rather, it recognizes that queer exclusion is tied to the same structural forces that disadvantages women, youth, and persons with disabilities. The struggle for LGBTI dignity is bound up with the struggle for gender equality, for economic access, for the rights of persons with disability, and for freedom from gender-based violence and hate crimes. None of us are free until all of us are totally free. And we know that it's not enough to count numbers. Representation alone does not make a workplace inclusion. We must move beyond token figures and statistic towards qualitative inclusion, creating culture of belonging, of safety, of affirmation. The SAWEI is about more than showing that a certain percentage of LGBTI people are present in the workplace. It is about ensuring that when they are present, they are respected, advanced, celebrated, and safe. It is about ensuring that workplaces are not simply diverse, but truly inclusive in a daily practice. SAWEI is practical. It's going to give us credible and evidence light. Employers answer short questions. They will provide simple evidence like screenshot or logs and receive a confidential inside report with a short list of actions. Public recognition is optional, of course. It is a tool to help organizations, not to punish them. It will give employers a roadmap to build safe workplace, fair hiring practices, and inclusive culture. This is really about transformation. Now, as government, we cannot ask of others what we are not willing to do ourselves. We are employers too. South African public service is the single largest employer in the country, with over 1.3 million people on its payroll across national and provincial departments. So if the public service mainstreams SAWEI principles, the ripple effects will be profound. We must have deliberate discussions on how to utilize this index within the public service so that the state models the value it proclaims. So that means, SAWEI team, you have a task to meet up with our public service administration to ensure that we mainstream, we integrate the very same principles so that we can have that ripple effect and we'll have that profound outcome. But for the private sector, the ask today is clear. Nominate a lead champion, publish salary ranges, and include an adjustment context of all job adverts, ensuring reporting and response pathway for harassment and GBV-related or hate crime risk. Build youth and disability pathway through learnership, internship, and reasonable accommodation. Include LGBTI people, owned suppliers in your enterprises or in your supplier development commitments and pay them on time. Enter SAWEI and complete at least 3 segments this week. These are not symbolic gestures, they are operational behaviors that can change workplace tomorrow. What makes SAWEI unique is its own intersectional design. It recognizes that women, youth, persons with disabilities must be centered alongside LGBTI realities. It covers everything from hiring fairly to adjusting reasonably to keeping people safe both online and offline. It also aligns with the Sustainable Development Goals, especially Goal 5, 8, 10, 11, and 16. And most importantly, it aligns with our National Development Plan 2030 outcomes. This insistence on delivery is what places SAWEI firmly in the company of leading global benchmarks. Around the world, we see familiar or similar frameworks. The Stonewall Workplace Equality Index in the United Kingdom, the Corporate Equality Index of the Human Rights Campaign in the United States, and the Australian Workplace Equality Index. Like them, SAWEI is evidence-based, validated independently, and it's also transparent in its tiers of recognition. But SAWEI also goes further, where others' insights focus narrowly on LGBTI policies. Ours situates queer inclusion inside the wider South African struggle for transformation. It looks not only at employee benefits and culture, but it also looking at supplier diversity, community co-design, pay equity, and intersecting realities of gender, race, disability, and youth. It reflects, of course, who we are as a country. What more do we launch this time, few days after the Heritage Day, because our culture, our identities, and our own tradition is embedded in this most important launch. It reflects who we are, a country whose democracy itself was built on intersectionality. Unlike many contexts, our index is not running ahead of the law. It is anchored firmly in our constitution, one of the few in the world that protects LGBTI persons explicitly. And unlike other contexts, SAWEI is the first of its kind on African soil. It is not borrowed, it is born here. It carries the philosophy of Ubuntu, declaring that our humanity is bound together. It also says to Africa and the world, equality is not un-African. It is deeply African. We must demystify the origins of LGBTI people by recalling our own history. We know a lot has been done in the past. Institutions that looked at workplace policies and also looking at the values. We know this, but I think the kind of modeling now SAWEI represents what we want to see in terms of a whole value chain of employment and opportunities within the workplace and economic justice itself. So long before colonial laws, we also know, criminalized same-sex relations and gender diversity, African society had practices, languages, traditions that recognize fluidity. The Bulubedi Rain Queen in Limpopo, the gender-crossing healers amongst the Zulu and Xhosa, the same-sex marriage amongst women in parts of Nigeria and Sudan, and the initiation tradition that accommodated non-binary expressions are all examples of pre-colonial African life. What was alien was organization. But this cannot be the work of employers alone. We know this. Part of this work will require our engagement as well with the trade unions or union federations. Trade unions must give SAWEI teeth in collective bargaining. Civil society must monitor progress and guard against pink washing. Academia must train future managers in inclusive practices. Faith communities must remind us that Ubuntu calls for compassion and dignity. Media and creatives must shift narratives and tell stories of equality. And young people, the future workplace must demand SAWEI compliant employers when they apply for jobs. Critically, SAWEI must also confront the industries most resistant to change, the male-dominated, white-dominated sectors that for too long have defined workplace cultures in this country. Sectors such as mining, construction, finance, ICT, and so forth have historically entrenched patterns of exclusion. Just as broad-based Black economic empowerment became a measure of our commitment to racial and economic transformation, SAWEI must become a measure of our commitment to workplace equality and dignity. No mine, no bank, no boardroom must show or should be beyond the reach of inclusion for that matter. And no employer should be celebrated for transformation if they exclude queer lives from that of a vision. That brings me to the global context in which we stand. Around the world, there is a growing backlash, a coordinated anti-gender movement that is well-resourced and strategic. We see it in the US, we see it in many other parts of the world. They speak of protecting children, of family values, of tradition. But beneath these words lies the same old project to police women's bodies, to erase queer people, to reassert patriarchy as a natural order. From Eastern Europe to Latin America, from parts of Africa to even within our own borders, South Africa. This movement uses fear and disinformation to roll back decades of progress. It is in this environment that SAWEI becomes more than a workplace tool. It becomes an act of resistance. It tells those forces in South Africa, dignity is not negotiable. Equality is not up for debate. At the same time, South Africa stands at the helm of G20 presidency. This is not a ceremonial role. It is an opportunity to shape the global agenda at a time when inclusion is contested. Through Women 20, the Y20, the Disability 20, and the Parliamentary 20 tracks, we are ensuring that intersectionality is not theory, but practice in global governance. We know our presidency has placed equality at the center, demanding that global economy recovery, digital transformation, and climate justice must include women, youth, persons with disability, and queer persons. We know that our theme for G20 is equality, it's solidarity, it's sustainability. So we are pushing for accountability, for resources, and for partnership that makes inclusion real across our borders. SAWEI, therefore, is part of a larger story. South Africa leading not only in law, but in practice, not only in words, but in systems. It positions our nation as a constitutional leader and as an international beacon. It says to the world, Africa is not trailing behind. Africa is showing the way. So, colleagues, the SAWEI journey is not a once-off exercise. It is an incredible and accreditation path, a process of continuous improvement. Employers are challenged not only to enter, but to grow, to move from bronze to silver, from silver to gold, from gold to platinum. The message is simple. Equality is not a box to be ticked. It is a culture to be lived. And so, as we launch this index, let us be clear. Its significance lies not in the ceremony, but in the change it demands. It will demand of leaders the courage to be inclusive and to lead inclusively so. It will demand of human resource practitioners the creativity to design systems that protect and affirms. It will demand of colleagues the humanity to create safe cultures, and it will demand of all of us the vigilance to resist the creeping tide of intolerance. So let me conclude, colleagues, by saying that with this reflection, SAWEI transform equality from abstracts into practice, from paper into culture, from silence into visibility. It declares that queerness is not marginal but central, not erased but celebrated as part of the beating heart of South Africa's freedom. This is the inheritance of our democracy. And we have this democracy to protect as members of LGBTI community, as members of South Africa or citizens of South Africa. This democracy must never be taken for granted. So many issues, so many challenges, but also so many great things that can emerge when we protect this democracy. This is the work of our generation. And this is the promise of the South African Workplace Equality Index. So we want to congratulate SAWEI team, and we want to say congratulations to the entire country for making sure that this happened. Good luck with everything. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That is Honorable Deputy Minister Mapaseka Steve Letsike for the Department of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities. Thank you for reinforcing why LGBT plus inclusion matters in our workplaces, in our economy, as well as in our society. And really, to your point, Honorable Minister, is that the call to action here is that let us enter as employers and broader society, let us enter SAWEI 2026, which is the South African Workplace Equality Index. And we are really looking forward to it because as South Africans and Africa at large, inclusion is part of who we are, and we should move in that fashion in unity. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. So just in terms of, we've got over 50 participants in the call. Thank you everyone that has joined us for being here. We really appreciate you. Just some housekeeping rules again. We will leave some time towards the end for Q&A. So please prepare to pose on the chat, to unmute yourself when the time comes and ask the questions. I know that we've got limited time, so we might not be able to attend to each and every comment, question, or input. But however, we will make record of those and we will hand over to the management team, who will then respond via email after the call. So thank you again once more, Honorable Minister. So moving on with our program. So now we'd like to introduce our wonderful and a really visionary South African Workplace Equality Index panel. And I'm just really particularly excited for the visionary and much needed work that they are doing in this space. So first up, we have Tivershan Kuni Erasmus, who is the co-founder for the South African LGBT+ Management Forum. And next up, we'll have Kanti Pai, who is the senior economist as well as the SAWEI advisory board member. And last but not least, we'll have Mr. Nganana Trowa, who is the civil society co-chair, the National LGBTIQ+ task team. So to the three gentlemen that will engage us for the next 20 minutes, so they will each have 5 minutes, and then we'll then have 5 minutes for Q&A for the panel. So in total, we'll have 20 minutes to engage. So welcome, Tiv, welcome, Kanti, as well as welcome, Mr. Nganana Trowa. We are really, really blessed to have you in your visionary leadership. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody.
Yes, so let's get into it. So I think let's kick off with you, Tiv. So seeing that you are the co-founder of this wonderful initiative, so maybe you will also enlighten us who the other founders are. But let's kick off the discussion just in terms of, in your view, how does SAWEI scoring fare in terms of, improvement-oriented evidence light, and what good looks like for you by the end of November, once all the employers have entered and registered for the index? Can you just walk us through that process? Also, what are you really aiming to achieve? Maybe also give a bit of background and history in terms of, where you started and where you are now and what you're looking forward to in terms of 2026. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And again, good morning, everybody. So the South African Workplace Equality Index of our LGBT+ Management Forum was founded in 2016 with a bit of pre-work for a few of us who were starting LGBT+ programs at our workplaces, and a few of us got together to actually start an NGO so we could drive this change within corporate South Africa. And corporate being a wide umbrella, meaning not just large employers, it was always meant to also cover government and SMEs as a best practice as we grew, which is what we're looking to achieve this year for the first time in widening our net as we are. We had our first 2018 pilots in our 2018-2019 cycle, and it was a first national benchmark. It just emphasis then was around policies and ERGs, and it was seeded in kind of just an evidence bank. We did our next cycle in 2021. That was on our fully digital platform. We're looking for stronger consistency checks, and we added some added outcomes beyond paperwork. We're looking at more kind of company behavioral aspects. And then we went through our 2023 to 2028 5-year accreditation journey, where we were doing check-ins with companies around their sustained improvement, and also just gathering around how the world had changed. Because when we first did the initial index to where we are now, a lot of the narrative and challenges and intersectionalities weren't as prominent then as they are now. And we also then had to evolve, which was always the case, which is always going to be the case for the index, but it gave us clear insight on what we wanted to evolve to. 2026 in our current cycle is we're looking at a much more mature framework. So we're going to look at 8 themes, 16 segments. It's evidence light, so even though it sounds like a lot, it is specifically designed to be evidence light. When we did a dry run on it, it takes about 25 to 30 minutes to upload all the evidence and answer the questions. So it doesn't take a lot of time out of the practitioners' lives who have to do this. And it also allows for companies, as always, to do this anonymously. You, as a company, you will get a detailed feedback report. Your anonymity is guaranteed, as we've shown in previous iterations for those companies who don't want to be publicly participating. And we do understand the world is an interesting place these days, especially for our colleagues working in multinational companies out of some of the Northern Hemisphere territories where there is a challenge around their political systems that may make it a bit difficult, but we do have anonymity for those companies in those situations and other companies who would like to remain that way. And then we have an interesting addition. So we're looking at things like recruitment fairness, pay equity, supply diversity, community co-designs, customer inclusions. So we're very excited about our 2026 iteration. And it's quite exciting because we're now looking at policy, we're now looking at people, we're now looking at workplaces, we're now looking at work systems, we're now looking at customers. And this will then give the tiering around scoring around platinum, gold, silver, bronze, or grassroots. And also your individual report will also give you a pathway for how you scored, and then just how you scored also relative to the peer groups, and then also an individualized report around how your company can enhance their scores in future, which is fantastic for everybody in this field because quite often the challenge is, oh, but what do I do? How do I become better? Participating gives you a detailed report on how to become better and how to become the benchmark for your organization, whether you're an SME, whether you're an NGO, whether you're a government department, or whether you're a part of the larger corporate workforce. Around how to just make your workplace the best. Companies by their nature are competitive. The competitive nature of SAWEI does lend to that for companies to also know where they rank relative to their peers, and everybody wants to be the best. And I think that also drives very good outcomes when companies do compete with each other that way. And I think, I just want to touch very briefly on what some of those themes and segments are. So we're going to look at things like governance and leadership. So what is your policy governance? What is your accountability reporting? Policy governance will touch on things like non-discrimination, gender affirmation, dress and expression, which are very important for people who present differently in the workplaces to be themselves. Accountability and reporting, so that's around executive sponsorship, metrics and board visibility around programs. We have seen large companies in South Africa who have participated actually put these on their board packs out into the market about their participation in the index, putting out publicly their support of the LGBTQIA+ community in their organization and the work that they're doing to support that. But again, not everybody's journey in that we understand the world is a challenging place these days. We look at inclusive systems and spaces. So how are HR and systems aligned for things like names and pronouns, properly aligned data management, the facilities within organizations to be inclusive, signage, and benefits pathways for people who are of the LGBTQIA+ community. Recruiting and onboarding, so things like fair hiring, salaries, bias check job descriptions to make sure language use and openness of that. Adjustments to contracts for people who are in the form of otherness, who they may have started at the company 5 years ago. It may not be who they are today, and the ability for corporates to adjust work contracts that way. Reasonable accommodation for hiring and those kind of things. Things like employee support and wellness. So things around protection policies around harassment, reporting, protection of the employee and follow through. And then also things like employee assistance programs and mental health programs. So trauma awareness, access, uptake. How skilled are those people on the other side of the call to have a conversation with you? It's one thing having a phone number. It's another thing phoning it in. The person has no context of who you are and starts giving you general life advice. And you're going, no, I have a very specific set of questions I need to ask you and things that I need assistance with. Then looking at things like capability and pay equity. So what are managers' skills within organizations to understand the community, have conversations around the community? There's one thing around respecting people's sometimes religious and other rights, but a workplace has got a different set of rules and responsibilities, and there's a responsibility on people leaders to understand the otherness of the people that they lead. And then looking at things like pay equity and progression. So how are companies taking corrective actions to fix those kind of things? Then looking at things like culture and ERG programs, learning and awareness within those, supply diversity, including procurement and community partnerships, and then advocacies of the brand and customer inclusion. I think corporates have always been asked around brand washing, but a lot of corporates have done really well to understand the community and understand their products and services for that community and pivot and broaden their messaging. And we want to just reward companies that are doing that work and encourage others to do that too. So Pam, I know I've said a lot. I just don't know, do you have any other aspects that you'd like me to cover?
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tiv. You've given us a lot and you've given our audience a lot as well. So we will give them time for Q&A. So please, then for those that noted Tiv's presentation, just make sure that you are noting your questions, comments in the chat, as well as getting ready to unmute yourself when that opportunity comes. Thank you so much, TV, for this wealth of information and why inclusion really matters in our workspaces and communities and society at large. Thank you so much. So with that, let us move over to Kanti Pai. So welcome, Kanti. You are on mute.
Thank you so much, and good morning to everybody who's on next morning.
Okay. So there's something wrong with the audio. I'm not sure what's happening.
I started with my audio.
Hello?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, we can. Maybe drop off and join again.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So can you hear me, Kalim?
Yes, you're audible.
All right. So let's, while Kanti is sorting out his audio, let's move over to Sibonelo. So Sibonelo politely corrected me because earlier I addressed him as Mr. So welcome, Sibonelo, to the panel, and thank you for being here. So let's move over to you. Let's really talk about, for your segment, what differentiates surface level inclusion from measurable change in the context of, the lived experiences, some of really the practicalities around the process that we are launching for 2026. Over to you, Sibonelo.
Thank you so much. And I would like to say congratulations to the team for launching such a what do you call it? A tool that is going to see us move forward, but also see what is on paper being practiced and being lived. So maybe to answer your question and answering it on the entity's point of view, I think the work of SAWEI is exactly what is needed, which is practice. which is something that is we can measure, which is something we can see, which is something we could see change. And I think with what SAWEI is doing, it links up quite well with the work of the National Task Team, which is guided by the National Intervention Strategy, where you look at pillar 1 being accountability of leadership, meaning that with the work that SAWEI is doing and the practical tools that they have to assist companies, we will start seeing leadership that is being accountable and leadership that is also will be willing to change, because they will be looking at other companies that are succeeding or that have changed and that are improving in providing services to the queer people. But also with the work of SAWEI, it means that we will be also addressing pillar number 6 in the NIS, which looks at research and information management, meaning that we will be responding to something that we know, we'll be responding to something that we have information, we'll be responding to something that we know what it looks like, so that our response will then be informed. But most importantly, I think the work of SAWEI will be addressing within the National Task Team or within the NIS will be English in the morning, economic power. And this is what we want to see for the queer people. I think Steve has touched a lot on the lived experiences of queer people, that they are underpaid, that they are underemployed. And we hope that with the work that SAWEI will be doing, we will be able to then address or unlock pillar 5, which is the economic power, that the queer person will then have a better chance of finding work, but also not just finding work where they will be themselves, where they will reach their full potential without the fear of being discriminated or without the fear of having to hide themselves just to get a promotion, or the fear of being overlooked because of how they express themselves. But also with SAWEI, I think what is also critical is that it will give a picture of how infrastructure should be designed moving forward, meaning that it should provide for people who identify as non-binary, but also it should provide for people who are intersex, who are assigned intersex at birth, meaning that we will not have people disappear in the workplace, because a lot of intersex people, and this happens even in queer organizations, a lot of intersex people find themselves disappearing within the workspace. They're consumed by the other alphabets, and they are made to disappear. And how does this work? It's just that because even when intake in organizations, we look at male and female, and we don't look at intersex people, meaning that from the start you are erased. So I hope that SAWEI will be a member of the entity soon, so that we could use their data, but also we could use their skills in making sure when we are addressing or when we are responding within the provincial task teams and the mandate of the National Task Team, which will be the NIS or guided by the NIS, we will respond being informed, we will respond with better knowledge of what we are responding to, but also we will also like to assist SAWEI in lobbying employers in being benchmarks or in being examples of what it looks like to be inclusive, what it looks like to be diverse, and what are the benefits. But lastly, SAWEI will be responding to change, meaning that when the workforce has changed or their mindset has changed, it automatically trickles down to changing a society. It automatically trickles down or mirrors a society that will have to be diverse and inclusive, and we will then have less hate crimes happening. We will have the finally having the entity being absolute, or the entity having to close down, because there will be no need for us to be here, because we're not supposed to be here for a very long time. But I hope with our partnership, and I really hope that SAWEI becomes a member of the entity, that we will be able to then change communities for the better.
Thank you so much, Sibonelo. Thank you so much for really highlighting, in your segment, what really differentiates surface level inclusion from measurable change for our communities, our workplaces, and our society at large. So please make note of your comments for Sibonelo's segment. So let's move over. Thank you so much, Sibonelo. Let's move over to Kanti. So Kanti, let's hope we are good now. Can you just say hello?
Hello, good morning.
Oh,
Am I
yes.
better now? I'm
All
so
right.
happy. Thank you.
Yeah, no, welcome, Kanti. Welcome.
Thank you very
So
much.
we are good. So let's close off with you now in the next 5 minutes. Really just give us the business case and the macro view really of this initiative, what it means in terms of building inclusive workplaces. Over to you.
Thanks you so much. Look, I'm very glad that this happens at a time when, obviously, as we know, economic inclusion in the world is under severe attack. It's certainly LGBTI rights are really actually almost at a place where there's a very serious pushback. So we are very lucky that we are able to be in a space that we can have this kind of conversation in this kind of environment that we're having it in. And I think that's very, very important. Look, there's nothing more important, I guess, than what we've all been fighting for, which is economic inclusion. But to do that, I think, and we will say more about this a little bit later, is that people need to be safe to feel included, right? And I usually use this word, this thing about safety in such a manner that when people say, for example, visit countries or travel to certain places or visit friends, wherever they go, they want to feel safe that where they are going is a safe place. We know in economies that one of the key areas, for example, about tourism, about economic investment, is that people want to invest where it's safe. People want to invest where want to travel where it's safe, and therefore also want to work where they feel it's safe. And an inclusion in this, and those and safety is not something that sort of somebody tells you, no, go there, it's safe. They give you signs about that. They'll tell you, for example, you'll see visibility of police. They'll tell you there's street lights. They'll tell you there's activity. There's a lot of people like yourself. You know what I mean? Then you feel a little bit safe. And I think that businesses that want, therefore, to attract good talent, want to think about obviously providing those safe places or safe spaces for people to work to attract the best talent are going to have to show that that's safe, and they have to give those indicators. And one such indicator for safety is probably an index such as this one, because if you're participating in this index as an employer, if you're giving that information, it means that you are interested in showing that you have that space, but also in creating such a space for your employees across the board, and that you are actually inclusive as far as you can. And so I think as an economic indicator, safety is a key thing. Because we know the opposite of safety obviously is feeling insecure, feeling volatile, vulnerable, and people don't really want to feel that way if they are to give their best investment, which is themselves, which is their talents, which is their work. And so we're going to be able to do that here in terms of actually thinking about the workplace and how this index can actually support those efforts for employers.
Thank you, Kanti. Really on point in terms of the business case, in terms really of why this work is very important in terms of lived experiences and the macro view in terms of the global context as well. So thank you so much. So we've got 10 minutes before we end the call. So I think in the next 5 minutes, let's move over to Kale. Who is the SAWEI representative. Just for 5 minutes, Kale, just highlight for us in terms of what this process SAWEI 2026 measures, and also just to reinforce how organizations get involved and any other critical information that you may want to then highlight, and then as we move towards the close, and then hopefully then we'll have 5 minutes left for Q&A session. Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your allyship and support. So essentially, just to add on what Tef has already touched on, along as well with the rest of the panel, and the Deputy Minister, thank you so much for showing up for us. As SAWEI, we've been around for 9 years. And what has changed in terms of what we've done in the previous 3 cycles is that before we were very much focused on policies and processes, because at that time there wasn't much in the workplace, even in terms of policies. Policies were very gendered and exclusionary. But now we've evolved so much that we are now moving towards an end-to-end view that gives us an opportunity to be able to improve the entire employee life cycle. And that's why the 8 themes, that's why the 16 segments. So what you will be seeing across the platform or across the documents that you might have already received. I see also there's a lot of queries in the chats. Most of you that have shared your details, you have already received the email. If you can just please check your junk mail, because we have been getting a lot of queries and a lot of the people are then able to find that information in their junk mail. So if you can just please check your junk folder, and then you'll be able to get access to everything that you need. But back to the program. So ideally, what we are looking to do is to, work together with corporate organizations or any employers to be able to be a partner and use SAWEI as a framework to be able to enable LGBTQ plus employee experience in a consistent manner, and also in a manner that is guided, that it is in partnership, that basically drives the notion nothing for us without us. And why we would like you to participate is, credible benchmarking, that accreditation, strategic alignment. This gives you also the opportunity to have a competitive advantage within the talent market. So means that as an employer, when an LGBTQ plus person sees your company profile on our report, they'll be able to know that as much as there's no workplace that is perfect, at least there are workplaces that have started and that are committed to the journey. And over and above, then what will then happen is that organizations will get private reports that gives them granular details of what are the gaps that exist and what are some of the things that they're getting right. And then it gives you that end-to-end view of what you can look forward to for the rest of the journey, because this is the 2030 journey. We don't expect everybody to get it right in one go. So next year we'll be repeating exactly the same questions. Everything will stay the same because we're working towards maturity. And over and above, then what this means for next year is then we will have the report that will go out in February, and then in March we'll have the accreditation awards. One of the things just to remember is that, as the minister has also alluded, this is based on the 16 laws or 16 regulations that already exist that protect LGBTQ plus people within South Africa. We've also integrated the SDGs. These are the key SDGs that we have been very intentional to make sure that are part of that. This also then enables the different corporate organizations to integrate this into their external affairs journeys, so that they can also start engaging government for queer social issues, and obviously then gives you a proper roadmap for you to be able to know where we're going. As mentioned as well, in terms of the portal, what we are asking employers to do at the moment is that already have the questions, put them on an Excel spreadsheet, start a working group internally, because with the 8 themes, we are now cutting across all the different departments within the organizations. So appoint a champion, let the champion put the questions into an Excel spreadsheet, and let that person then start working with the different teams to be able to populate the information. There will be follow-up emails that we will send, which then will share the banking details for the companies that qualify to pay the registration fee. However, participation is free for small organizations, startups, and for medium-sized and large corporates, then there is a cost associated to it. It's a minimum of 3.5 and then a maximum of about 6.7. And we will then be looking across these 8 themes. This is what everything is basically looking like. The expectation is that for you to capture on the portal, it will take you about 27 minutes. but working outside of the system will probably take you a bit longer. So we encourage you to work offline, and then once you have everything, then be able to go onto the portal to be able to attach the evidence and also then complete the different questions. The scoring and a methodology is going to work in this manner. So you'll have 3 options in terms of how you answer the question: yes, no, or partial. And then there will be questions that we expect you to give us a bit of more context in terms of how all of that has been done. And also we'll then maybe ask for evidence where it's applicable. One of the things that then you kind of just need to remember is that we're looking at grassroots, so meaning entry level. Even if there's nothing, you are more than to attach a plan. If you are saying that 2025 is the year for us where we're starting this work, you can attach that work as opposed to attaching anything else if there's nothing else. And what that will earn you is that it will earn you an entry level accreditation, and then you'll make your way up all the way to foundational, imaging, progressive, and leading. And then the key days just for you that you can keep in mind: the cycle opened up last week on the 26th, and we will be closing on the 14th of November. If you have any challenges, please reach out to us so that we can manage it, because we do know that there's other things that happen at work that might sometimes complicate you reaching the deadlines, but we're more than open to negotiating anything that you'd like to negotiate with us within your context. What matters at this point is the participation and the partnership to enable safe places for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Kali. Thank you. Kali is the SAWEI, South African Workplace Equality Index representative. So he will be sending through a lot of information in terms of this process. I know that he has already started. So we literally have 2 minutes before we close. So we'll take 1-2 questions for either the Deputy Minister or our panel, before we close. So if anyone has got a question, please unmute yourself and pose the question. We know that there are comments and maybe there may be some questions in the chat. Those in the chat will be attended to via email post the session. So the first person that raised their hand, please kindly unmute yourself and pose the question to either the Deputy Minister or our panelists. Thank you. So I'm not sure who was first. So there's a couple of hands. Can you just assist me with that process, Kali? The first hand that I see here on my screen is TN. Tebogo Nage. Yes.
Hi everyone. Great to meet you guys. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that it's nice to see that we have people working, not to say in the background, but we have people who are trying to pull people forward. So I'm actually very glad that I've come across this meeting, and I'm very aware of the organization and what you guys are trying to achieve as a whole. Secondly, I would like to address the fact that, I don't know how to ask this question. So where does the line start from it being an LGBT inclusivity issue when it comes to workplace representation and salaries and etc., to it being a youth problem when it comes to companies and regulations and, so yeah, that's I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but something along those lines.
I can see that Kanti is smiling. So Kanti, please, I'm assuming that with your smile, You will
I
take
think
Tebogo's question or statement.
no, let's take it as something that we need to think about, I would say, because I think it's something that is very, very important. One has to think about it. It may also be, because we've got obviously inclusion has so many dynamics, right? Youth inclusion, we know, of course, in South Africa, we've got racial issues, gender, and then, of course, when we talk about, LGBTQ issues, so minorities and all of that. So certainly there's no doubt that this is something that we need to think about. Because obviously it's quite nuanced. I certainly don't have the answer to that, but it's probably something that we need to park now and engage on. And then when we are finally releasing this in the next meeting, we actually delve into that because it's something that we're gonna have to answer. Really, a very important question.
Thank you, Kanti. So we are on top of the hour. It is exactly 10 o'clock. So we'll just really like to say for those that need to go, thank you for joining us. Thank you, but there will be a follow-up email and recording that will be distributed by the management team. So you are more than welcome to exit the meeting if you really need to go. But then if you, for those that want to stay behind, can we just take maybe 3 minutes to accommodate the 2 hands that were raised so that they can pose their questions, and then we'll do an official close no later than 10:05. So over to you. The other hand that I see up is Abongile.
Thank you so much. Lovely to see colleagues on the call doing exceptional work. I think we've waited for so long for this particular engagement. In Desmond, we have a SAWEI sensitizations that we've rolled out with healthcare professionals and healthcare facilities. And part of it is speaking to an inclusion matrix of how do we best make our facilities more inclusive. And this touches on a myriad of components. But it also raises some concerns that need to be engaged within either national or district policies. So I think my question is here is how far does this engagement or policy speak to government institutions, as they are also work forces or workplaces that also recruit suppliers from external spaces? And as well as speaking to HR policies. Now, HR policies that speaks to the Basic Employment Act or Labor Act. How far does this particular engagement speak to a more a national engagement of policy and change? Okay, thank you so much. And exceptional work, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Abongile. So anyone from the panelists that would like to take Abongile's call? So I think, Kanti, you are off the hook. So that leaves Sibonelo and Tiv. So over to you, gentlemen.
I'll jump in.
Yes,
Oh, you go, Tiv.
happy for you to go on that, Kelly. Thank you.
Awesome. So thank you so much for the question. So this is tied directly to that. So one of the things that you will see once you start the index is that there is specific segments that talk to the employment equity requirements. We've got questions that are aligning to that. And then we are also working together with the National Task Team to do some of the work that can talk towards what the government context look like. So the survey within itself is open for any type of employer. But we are taking into consideration that corporate organizations have had 9 years in terms of SAWEI's existence to be able to work the journey. So there's a bit of maturity and understanding. And part of the conversations that then we're having with the minister is talking about how if the government journey needs to look different to take into account the maturity that sits there, or if we keep things the same. So it's an ongoing conversation, and we look forward to kind of exploring what it's going to look like for different sectors, because we open that, because this is a partnership and we happy to then take into context of what is it that a particular stakeholder is going through and how do we join them in terms of working the journey together, as opposed to, you know, being a service provider that kind of carries a stick and is, you know, just lashing. we want to rather to walk the journey hand in hand. And I'm not sure if maybe the Deputy Minister would like to chip in terms of what you've asked as well.
Okay, no, thank you so much, Kali. So with that, so there will be a follow-up email for the other questions and more additional information maybe that was not covered during the call. So let us then close off with the final question from, I can't see the name, but I think it's Kasonde. So over to you. Sorry if I butchered your name, my apologies, but
No
please
worries.
pose. Yes, pose your question, and so that we will then close the call. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Daniel Kasonda. I'm coming from the private sector. I work for SAP Africa, and it's very exciting to see this engagement and the fact that the government is involved. So my question is, with regard to partnership between the private sector and the government, how can we take this forward? Because for us, I think we'd like to really engage with government, and it's exciting that the minister is here. So it would be nice if we can have some guidelines how we can partner on this and take this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Kali, do you want to maybe answer that, and then we can close?
Yes, thank you very much, Daniel. Yeah, we will. Can we take that offline and just engage what that could possibly look like? But as said, we are not necessarily enforcing anything on anyone outside of following the framework as it is. We welcome any particular kind of context that evolves the journey, and that also takes into account the different lived-in experience, because obviously we don't exist in isolation of everything else. And if you look at how the index is structured, it's all about intersectionality and looking at what are the things that are there that we need to be leveraging, that we're not leveraging, and also just realizing that the things that the LGBTQ plus community is asking for and need isn't necessarily new. It's already there with the regulations, and we are already also covered from a UN perspective and any other sort of best practice that you can imagine as far as transformation goes. But what has then been the biggest or hardest hurdle is the how and the what. And that's what then SAWEI is bringing to the table. And obviously, then it's not going to be a one size fits all for every other organization that's taking part in this. And that's then the context that we welcome, because that's going to bring about organic growth, and not just organic, but something that is consistent and that is, I guess, very particular towards the different nuances and core dependencies, regardless of how you look at it. I see the minister is back on camera, so I will just maybe move over to her to touch on anything that she might want to add. Thank you.
Maybe through the program director, and I'll be very brief, just to say that we do, of course, welcome collaboration with the private sector. You can imagine, constantly when we speak about our economy, we do say that the economy will not grow itself. So we need to transform it. It's growing at a snail pace, and I spoke about the unemployment rate that also affects LGBTI people. So the team is here. Kay has all your contacts, and she can share my office contact details, but we also have the National Task Team. So this work will be an embodiment that advances the very same transformation and governance that is really proper and fit, that is inclusive of LGBTI people. So we look forward to the partnership, we look forward to engagement, but also we look forward to more capacity. One of our priorities as a seventh administration is to deliver a capable and ethical state. And all of these aspects, including the work that SAWEI is doing, is part of the building block on how to enhance and to really get a capable state that taps on the potential of our society. So we look forward to that kind of partnership and work to take this work forward through the structures and relevant departments that do the work. Thank you so much, colleagues, and thank you for this engagement.
Thank you. Thank you to the Deputy Minister. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the SAWEI task team, and thank you to the South African LGBT+ Management Forum for your visionary work and for this much needed dialogue and information sharing session. So let us then close this session, and please look out for a follow-up email with the recording from the team. And thank you all so much, and enjoy your day further. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye. Thank you.